Hello, welcome back to City Planner Plays, where we are building the city of Verde Beach, and this is Playa del Fuego. This is an area that everyone has been asking about for quite some time. And the reason why the development hasn't occurred yet is because Tony Burr of Burr Hills neighborhood, the owner of the music club across from the Hamilton Experience, he's owned this land for a number of years. It's been in his family forever, and Tony wants to clear his family's good name by building a high-quality development on Playa del Fuego. So Playa del Fuego is a town, and the town has had a set of plans for this area for a number of years. These plans are in opposition to what Tony wants to build, and the town has held a board meeting to officially map the area so that massive suburban development cannot be built in the way that he wants. Now, this isn't a takings, which is where basically the community would officially map this out or make his land undevelopable in response to his plan. This is the city's way, or the town's way rather, of ensuring that the plans that they've had in the books for a number of years are implemented in the way that they have planned them. So officially mapping this will ensure that the roads end up where the town is planned and that the park space ends up where the town has also planned that. So the town has put Tony's plans up in flames, if you will. So in sweeps Maggie Myrtle, and she's very excited because she has been eyeing this land forever. This is the exact kind of developable land that she has hoped to develop, and to get the finances for this, she is going to rapidly develop the rest of her land around the Lewis Lumber Company. So that's what we're going to be up to today. We're going to be rapidly developing this land. But before we get to that, I want to make a couple of corrections from the previous episode, and I want to give a huge shout out to today's video sponsor. I've teamed up with Apex Gaming PCs to design my own custom computer perfect for playing games like Cities, Skylines, and Timberborn. Check them out by looking at the link in the video description. Okay, so here we are back in Robbins Square, which is an inappropriate name, and David Durrett pointed that out. He thought that a great name for this neighborhood would be 5 Pillars Square. Now, the reason for that is there are 5 pillars of Buddhism, and I absolutely love that, so we're going to go with that. And then Zach Heel pointed out that maybe the name The Bowl isn't quite as appropriate as it could be. In Hindi, Katora means bowl. So he suggested that. This is actually his second naming suggestion that has been implemented, and it just shows you that you come up with good names, and I'll put them in the city. So thank you both David and Zach for your suggestions. The other suggestion that David had is going to require a bit of a mulligan, but I love it so much we're going to do it, and that is placing elder care behind here. We'll just ignore all of this stuff still going on. It's completely unavoidable at this point. So we'll place an elder care facility back here so that the elderly could walk to the temple easily. And with that, I think that it would be also it would make a lot of sense to have some sort of pedestrian connection through here for the elderly people to walk through. So a little bit of a mulligan on this as well. We were thinking that this would be a completely separate place. However, I really like the idea of granting some access to this. And then the last suggestion that was made was to replace this with replace the trees with some cherry blossoms as a bit of an ode to Japan. And I really like that idea as well. So I'm going to remove these trees that we just got, and we're going to actually replace the trees with some vanilla trees that came with the game. So we can go and grab these. I think that this will look very good. Add those through here, and then replace some of the locations where there were trees with grasses instead. Okay, and I really like the way that this looks now. I think it fits a lot better. The very last thing that we're going to want to do is add a bus route through this entire area. That's something that we didn't do, so there is really good transit service, but there's not really a great way to get to it outside of walking. So what we're going to do is have a circulator loop that drops people off at the train station, and that should resolve some of the transit issues in this area. So this will be something that isn't mirrored, but I think that that's completely acceptable in this particular area. And there we go. So this loop is just going to loop around 5 Pillars Square and the Katora district, drop off at this bus stop, which is right across from the train station, more or less, and the subway. We're going to want to go through here, and I think this is going to fill up rapidly. So I'm going to upgrade that right away to an articulated bus. We'll name this 5 pillars. And then we need a new color. Let's go with something dark. We're going to name this 5 pillars loop. There we go. So now we have our 5 pillars loops around here, and I'll be interested. Let's let this run for a minute and see just how successful this route is. Okay, so I've let it run for a little while, and we're seeing that there are some utilization at some of these stops. So I'm feeling good about that, but there are way too many vehicles. We're going to take this down to 2. I think that's going to be enough. Each one of these super bendy buses from the Vehicles Content Creator Pack has 100 passenger capacity. So I think we're going to be completely fine with just 2 vehicles. So with that, let's get on with the episode to where we are going to be. Oh, everyone's sad someone lost a game. So what we're going to do today is focus on this area right here. There is some terrain there that's going to be a bit of a concern, but this is going to be a primarily residential area. That is our biggest demand at this point, and it's not surprising. We haven't really built much in terms of residential properties outside of that last neighborhood for quite some time. Yet we have created jobs, so it's about time. Now that I think about it, we've actually developed a couple of neighborhoods recently, so we're okay. But this is still needed. So what we're gonna do is look at our terrain a little bit, and we're gonna do a bit of terraforming. We're gonna terrace this neighborhood out so that we are maximizing our development potential in this area. So I don't want to build anything along this road down here. So for our first terrain height, we're going to pull it right up. And now for the rest of them, we're going to try to make them a little bit more predictable. You see that? We're showing the terrain who's boss. It's us. Respect the topography? Sure. But also, the topography is going to respect us today. So we're going to still, with our new terrain heights, we are going to respect the topography and attempt to build something that isn't lumpy and bumpy. So trying to straighten this out and make it as logical as it can be. Up near the road here, I'd love to get rid of these low spots. I would imagine if there was ever a reconstruct, these low spots would be removed in an effort to ensure that there's no ponding or pooling there if there's a rain event, which I would expect that to be a significant problem if there were a rain event. So we're going to pull this up so we can have some commercial uses along the road. And we are going to grab this other terrain height as well and continue our terraced effect. Now this is a fairly significant area. We're going to need some sort of collector connectivity in here, and that is something that we're going to plan for right off the bat too. We're going to extend this road straight down into whatever local road comes right here. So let's just plan for that right up front. So we will slope this. And now you start to see how this could be developable. And it's potentially going to be a little controversial the way this develops, but I think it's going to make good sense when we look at our terrain. So we're going to pop back in here and let's get all of our snap twos on. We'll pull this down and we're going to follow this terrain line down here. So we're using all of the tools at our disposal to get these roads to look as perfect as they can. I just grabbed the curved road tool, and what I'm trying to do now is find a good place to make a junction here. This is going to be a local road that basically functions as a collector. We might even want to formalize that and just make this a collector. Yeah, why don't we do that? I just want to make sure, yeah, actually we're not going to be able to do that. And I'm okay with it. Sometimes you have local roads that function as collectors and they're not 4-lane or ultra wide. Over here though, we are going to take that wider road and send that right down. You can see that it clearly didn't love my terraforming. I meandered over a bit, and we've got some work to do to fix that. So we're going to go into our sloped road tool, just pull that right up. I'm just right mouse clicking on the road itself and pulling up into it. And truthfully, the development on here is going to have an impact anyway, so I'm not going to get overly concerned about it, but I want it to have some of the characteristics that I'm looking for. So the next thing that we're going to do is I want to make sure that we're not inadvertently zoning this area at all. we're going to build a small fence along this road, and that will prevent us from having any zoning oddities. I'm going to follow the dirt line in the road, which I find to be a very efficient way of doing that. Okay, so that'll prevent us. Over here where this road backs off a bit, we'll have some homes. Over here, it's a little bit too closed. And then I'm going to back all of these palm trees off from the hillside. We don't want palm trees kind of growing out of a cliff. That's a bad look. And truthfully, for this whole area, we're going to do our own landscaping anyway. So we've got this established. It's a nice, it could be a nice orderly plan, and that's what we're going to try to do, make it easy to develop for ourselves. So what we're going to do, we don't want to, this is a suburban development, and we're not going to have too many connections over to our collectors. We have basically these major collectors, and this would be a minor collector along with this one. And we're going to make all of our local roadway connections to these roads. So that is going to be our game plan. We're going to try to maximize the saleable lots. That is going to be one of our guiding principles here. And the other thing is we are going to freeform this. What we're going to do is have a grid, but it's going to be a loose grid. So we're still maximizing the number of lots that we could sell in this area, and we still have a great deal of connectivity. Now this road bent a bit. I really don't like when that happens. So we are going to go ahead and fix that using our curved road tool, which will give us that nice turn there. Now I didn't mean to have trees on all of these roads. I want to have my main collectors to have trees. Truthfully, I think every road should have trees, but just for the benefit of parking, we're going to keep it off the collectors, and we'll have it on our local roads. So over here, we're going to do something very similar. I am interested, though. I didn't really respect the terrain over here as much as maybe I should have. So let's let the terrain guide us a bit more here. And true to suburban form, I'm going to cut this road off so this can't be used as a cut through. And there we go. So this side really respects the terrain quite a bit, and I like that. But what we are going to do is ensure that we do have paths through here. That's something you'll often see in newer suburban areas, is that where the road connections aren't made, they'll have a path, which that's something. So we'll go with it. And then here, even though there's no clear spot where it would need to be, we're going to add this through here as kind of a recreational facility. The developer would likely be interested in this because it could be a selling feature of the neighborhood. And that is certainly something that a developer is thinking about. They're putting the paths through there not because they think that, not because they're super into paths. Generally, it's because people want paths, so they want paths, they want parks. When your neighborhood isn't developed, what's going to get you to want to move there? Something like a path. Interestingly, I thought I could put a path connection right here. Not letting me. I'm wondering. There we go. That's not beautiful, but it works. The thing I'm most disappointed about is we have a transit connection right here, but as you can imagine, that is within the gated community. So we are not going to have a connection to transit, as silly as that sounds. We're going to have to use a bus to get there, or they'll have to walk. This is a part of the gated community. So as you can imagine, there's a pretty decent chance that over here in Sterling Estates, they actually come along, and as they hear about this development, they say, oh, we're not letting that happen. Vets, you are not welcomed in here. So that is the it's a gated community. So that is the way that we will handle that. So now we've got this area, and this is honestly not a terrible network. How do we deal with the zoning in this area? Well, first of all, we need to finish up our paths. I missed a couple of connections here. There we go. So you can see there's a ton of connectivity through here. It is a little circuitous. It is suburban, but it's not a terrible layout. So what we're going to do is come along here in some of our areas that are along these collectors and have our commercial like we normally do. And I'm going to pause it now so that we can do a little bit more of a thoughtful job planning without lots of mulligans where we are demolishing things. So we do not have a great demand for really offices or anything like that. So we're not going to worry too much about that right now. And we're just going to have a pretty dense corridor of commercial buildings right along this collector. We're going to need to upgrade this road now. This is too loud to be near this residential. And let's leave this available for park space now that I think of it. We're going to want to have another significant park space, likely in this area where people could recreate in this neighborhood. We don't want to just rely on the vanilla parks. That's not good enough, not for this. So we'll leave that here and let's get this road upgraded now. And now that we have our new trees, we are going to be very thoughtful about our tree placement. I think it would be great for the rest of the build if when we place trees, we thoughtfully think about the trees that we are placing. So that's what we're going to do. And I'm going to slowly have a couple of live streams and things of that nature to ensure that we are going back through and upgrading things as we can as well. So we do want to have some uses through here that would serve this neighborhood. You can see that right here for health, fire, and police, we're not really serving this area all that well. So we're going to need that all the way through here. We are going to use this main drag through here as a way to provide some of these sorts of uses. So police, fire, this will be our little strip of Main Street that we have through this neighborhood. And we'll concentrate these uses here. We're also going to need a school, and we're going to integrate that right into our park, similar to what we did in our previous build, but even more so. So we'll have a community school, and she's really interested in this being expensive. So we're going to try to drive up the cost of some of the land here by having some premium amenities. So that's not going to work. We had an Institute of Creative Arts and the terrain height. We really should be looking at that, and I just placed that inappropriately. So we're going to move it over here. And with that, let's get rid of the trees in this area. And there's more that we're going to need in this area as well. One of the things that I'm very, very, very interested in is ensuring that we have postal service. So let's go ahead. I can never find these. It's just, it's one of those things that always escapes me. Oh yes, it is under garbage and industry because that's intuitive. So we'll go ahead and place that over here. And as always, we want to make sure that we're placing it on the right corner. There we go. We know that because we can look and it is at the corner. Look at that. That is a terrible height. Actually, it works. The parking's level, you walk up. It'd be really nice to have a fence here. But we'll live with it. And beyond that, death care, we should probably think about that in this area as well. And you'll notice I've been placing these all in the collector, creating a mini district like this. I think that that's completely acceptable in this area. I'd love for the speeds to come down on here and really have this be a busy, active corridor, but that's just not something I can do in the vanilla game, which is, it's fine. In fact, another thing, now that I'm thinking of it, maybe we formalize this as a bus corridor to ensure that there's good access to transit in this area as well. So just really thinking about the things that this area would need up front, that's what we're trying to do. Next, I want to take a look at park space. So this goes for the school as well as this area. So first of all, let's add in a couple of basketball courts by the school. Maybe just one. We'll have this be this is a small campus, so we don't need to go completely wild with it. Community pool, and then a sports hall and gymnasium. For this one in particular, I want to make sure that we are being thoughtful with our heights. There we go. And over here, just a small playground. Nothing extravagant. In fact, we'll add a basketball court over here as well, and a small playground. Kids play basketball too. Maybe the hoop should be a little bit lower, but not much we can do about that. There we go. And throughout the rest of the neighborhood, obviously we need some dog parks. That's a thing. So we're gonna do that. Developer comes in and appeases the entire neighborhood with 2 dog parks. and they're able to build whatever they want. Although this neighborhood's not developing, so this dog park is really serving this neighborhood over here in a very profound way. And I would expect that a developer would talk, they're going to be forced to talk to this neighborhood and provide them with something that they want. With Sterling Heights, they want separation. So I would expect to see more landscaping along this to provide a buffer, maybe even additional landscaping within Sterling Heights. So that is something that we're going to need to think about. I'm going to try to work in a larger park as well. I don't know that I've given myself enough space to do so. It doesn't look like I have. Maybe around this corner we can, nope, it's not going to let me. Doesn't like it. Not a thing. Nope. That's okay. It happens. Look at our heights. We can get one here and back here. And since we decided to put a school here instead of a park, I do think that we're going to need some additional park space over here to serve this area. And actually, I wonder, could we place our large park? No, I don't know why I am not seeing the sizes appropriately. It can be tough sometimes. That's probably enough park space. I just want to make sure that wherever you are, you're about a block or two away from walking to a park. And right now, it's a little dicey in this area. We could use something over here. We'll get one small park. Actually, we'll go with a plaza in the downtown area. And now you're about a block away from a park, no matter where you are. Perfect. So let's get our zoning along this main drag right here. We'll get that all straightened out. And before we get this running, we need to put our water pipes underneath the roads, right where they belong. And after that, we're gonna get this thing running and think about the placement of our homes. We're gonna give some more space. And the thought there is gonna be that if you're trying to increase the value of these properties, one of the ways that you can do it is giving them bigger lots. This is a suburban area, so I would expect that the lot spacing is a little bit more significant than in some of the more urban parts of Verde Beach. And there we go. We get our water run, or get the game running, and now we have water here. And you'll notice I put some of those pipes underneath the paths. That's completely fine. That could be an easement where you would totally expect to see that. So now we have all of our commercial figured out. It's time to figure out our residential. And a couple of things I'm noticing here. First of all, we've got to add some sidewalks, some crossings here. So we're going to need to think about that. And we also need to take a look at our zoning in a couple of these spots. So we're just not able to zone as much as I would prefer because of the terrain height. So we're going to fix some of that now to ensure that we are maximizing what we can develop and hopefully get 4 tiles along here. So I'm just going through and picking the height of the road and pushing this back. So again, thinking about our grading and doing it in stages up front as much as I can. And we'll do the exact same thing on the other side. Nice thing is we have some buildings over here which give us a bit of a guide so we can figure out how to absolutely push this as far back as we can to maximize our zoning potential. Now to get this to have all the tiles, we do need to upgrade the road. We can certainly downgrade it after that, but we need to upgrade it at least for a moment. So there we go. That's pretty good. I think in most of the areas, maybe right here, I could get a little bit more. And that even added back here, which is a benefit to us. So there we go. That's the benefit of going through and changing those heights after the fact. So let's go through block by block and make sure that we are zoning with purpose. So I'm gonna give some space to some of these buildings. I'm noticing that for some of these parks, I did not leave path connections out. I'm gonna add those after the fact and try to zone around it. So that'll be the game plan for now. We'll see how that works. Okay, so I spent a lot of time really thinking about the zoning through here, and the primary reason for that is I want to be able to put fences around these homes. and really create that sense of separation, really make it feel suburban. And that's the way that we're going to accomplish that, is lots of fencing. And it's really Maggie's attempt to sell a vision for this area, a lifestyle that would appeal to a certain set of people, people who are, maybe a little more privacy minded or something of that nature. Okay, so that is, I believe, basically all of our lots. So what I'm going to do now is go through with fences and just pop some of these through. Now, there isn't really a great, we could certainly use something like this forestry fence through here. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good fence to have as a neighborhood fence. That or this, but this nature reserve fence feels really rural. We could go with a park fence too. If it were white, I would maybe feel a little better about that. And now, because we've left all this space, we can leave our grid on and use that to help us create our fenced areas if we want. And I might just completely deviate from that and instead use maybe nothing. So let's go through and add some fencing. And we'll leave some of these without fences. So you could have fencing controlled by covenants, and those are documents that control the design of your neighborhood. That happens a lot now in newer neighborhoods, is that a developer will want to protect themselves, and to do that, for orderly development's sake, they will put covenants that restrict the uses that can be found on the lots. The uses, the colors of the building materials, the fence placement, mailbox placement, you name it. It can be so restrictive that at times it could even control the font of the numbers on your house. I mean, they can be completely overbearing and out of control. That said, they do exist. So we will assume that is the case here. And what you'll see is that in some areas, you're able to have fences, but they're strictly dictating where they're going to be. And then in others, you can't have them at all. I really wish that I had the ability to take all of these trees out in an easier way than what I'm doing now. But I'm just going to go through and get rid of some of these. I probably should have just cleaned this entire neighborhood up beforehand. Particularly these stumps. They just kind of stick out like a sore thumb. I'd love to leave the trees behind, but with the update, they look pretty horrible if we're going to use any of the new stuff, which I'd like to do. So yeah, this will be a goal. I want to make this the best looking vanilla suburban neighborhood that I can. And I think that's going to be by removing the old trees. Okay, now with that, all of our vanilla trees are gone except for those that are worked into the actual buildings themselves. There's not much I can do about that. We are going to upgrade the trees along the road to really bring this place to life. And I want to go through and do it on this old neighborhood up here as well. Might as well. And we're using, I believe this is the date. Yeah, the generic date palm through here. Along here, we'll go with the California palm. Yeah, that's a nice look. I love that so much. That is very, very nice to look at. And then we'll upgrade these roads as well. Now this, I'm looking at this as something that would be requested of this neighborhood over here. They're looking to have some trees planted, maybe some of their things upgraded in exchange for not complaining about this new neighborhood. So the developer's going through here and replacing some of these trees to improve the aesthetics of Karen Sterling's neighborhood, ensuring that they do not have significant concerns with this development. There we go. So I think we're looking pretty good. There are a couple of places where I noticed that we have lots that don't go. I guess it does make sense. It's just not working. It'll take some time, and that's completely okay. We do need to add landscaping back through here, and I'm going to speed this up just a little bit. We also need some path connections, so just small things to finish off this neighborhood. And to do this, I'm going to pull out to here. I'm going to give every lot their own tree in their backyard, and then we'll go with a little bit more landscaping on top of that. Okay, so all of these homes up here basically filled in, and down here we're still waiting. So I've gone through, and what I'm doing is adding some trees to buffer between the uses. I added some landscaping to buffer between the neighborhoods, and then I'm trying to cover up some of the lumpies and bumpies with some trees as well. This is going to be a very well landscaped neighborhood. Now, I've only used one tree so far, and that's a problem, but it's also not all that unrealistic, unfortunately, that when a developer comes in, they have a menu of options for the folks in the neighborhood. And what you'll see is that there are certain options that are more popular than others. So for landscaping, they might say, well, we've got these landscaping packages that you could choose from, and you must stay within here. You have a certain number of dollars that you can spend, and ultimately there's one that's better than the others, and everyone picks that one. And until the person with their green thumb comes into the yard and makes some changes, you end up with a lot of lots that look the same. So that's another one of the problems of covenants, is that you have a lot of lots that end up looking identical to one another, a lot of homes that look identical. And if you have those covenants on there, you can't actually change it, which creates predictability for people moving into the neighborhood. It's the reason why the developers like them. But it also creates a really homogeneous look that it's really kind of a shame, especially when there are so many ways that you can jazz up a place with landscaping. And just look at that. Beautiful, just beautiful. So on either end of the neighborhood, we have these park spaces, and I had zoning in here. I'm gonna back it up just a little bit. So these will be kind of integrated into the park, but it's kind of a welcome, a way of welcoming people into the neighborhood that is a little bit nicer than just buildings all over the place. That space creates an atmosphere, and it's going to be something that the community is looking for before granting development rights to this neighborhood. Just a little bit of green space. And we're going to do the exact same thing here. You would expect that some people would want some ornamental landscaping. We'll give some coconut trees in the yards. Sometimes you'll get stuff like this where it's the same home across the street from one another. I just love that because that is very, very realistic. It's ugly, but it's also realistic in these newer neighborhoods. You see that even in older ones, that's how things developed. The reason the homes look different now is back in the day when homes were developed, they usually gave an option for homeowner improvements down the line. So that might be the ability to finish off your second story on your own, get it all framed in, and then have the ability to finish it off when you have kids and need the extra space. Now you have bigger homes and more of that square footage finished off up front, and as a result, homes are more expensive. It's not all supply and demand. It's also the way that we're building homes. It's a problem, and I don't know exactly how that is prevented, but it's certainly something that I think needs to be addressed if we are going to see affordability of homes improve over time. That said, a lot of developers will say that the reason they don't do that anymore is it's not profitable to do so. And I've often wondered, is it not as profitable, or is it just not at all feasible? If you're a developer, let me know in the comments. Is it just not at all feasible in your estimation? That's what planners will hear that, but is that really the case? Or is it just that the margins aren't what would make it a, valuable use of your time? And now I just want to go through and lumpy and bumpy check. We're just going to add in some thick trees where there are bumpies. And this neighborhood feels really great at this point. I think that there is a case that could be made that this is a much nicer neighborhood than Sterling Estates. I would rather live in it if I'm choosing a neighborhood, a little bit extra, a little bit more logical pattern of development. And now I'm just sprinkling in some additional trees, creates a layer of color. and add just a little bit, my estimation. If we really wanted to get all out, we could certainly go through here and grab grasses and cover up the rest of the lumpies and bumpies. But there's a lot of them. So that's a lot of grass. It's a lot of nodes. This neighborhood is noded out. But the effect is just outstanding. I'm going to go through and fill some of these in. And after that, I think we're going to need to have a brief city tour. I'm just coming back through here real quick and leveling some of these out. Whoops, that's the wrong one. So this lets me have a little bit more orderly placement of some of these grasses, otherwise they can float. And so we'll want to keep a distance from there, but it's not too terribly bad. And the very last thing I'm going to do is come through and just smooth this out a bit. Now, the right mouse button, I believe, stronger effect. So I'm just going to come through and level some of this out and get rid of some of those really sharp edges. And the general effect here will be that it just looks a little bit more natural, like you've graded it out. You can see that some of those dark edges are going away. And it's really best to do this on 1 speed max if you want to maximize your frame rate anyway. I'm pretty pleased with how this neighborhood turned out. I think it looks really lush, really lively. I think it's actually a much nicer place than I was thinking it would be based on kind of the layout of the area, but it's not bad. And if we come through here and we take a look at our traffic, not really any issues here. That is because this is well laid out. It's logical. It's not very dense. I guess that's another big component of it. But it's a nice little neighborhood. So I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please hit the like button. If you aren't subscribed, please consider doing so. And I have a question. I've got a couple things I'd love for you to leave in the comments. Number one, if you have some neighborhood name ideas for this particular neighborhood, drop it in the comments. If you got ideas for road names, drop those in the comments. This is the most detailed neighborhood that we've built so far, and I really think we need to give it the thought and care it deserves. So I want to pick names for everything in this neighborhood. So if you have something that you want named, drop it in the comments. You know, we can't end this episode. There's no transit here. So let's get that taken care of right now. Just a real quick bus route. We'll go right down the center of the neighborhood and go right over to this transit terminal over here. And the way that we'll facilitate this is we'll go around the schools, which will be helpful for the entire neighborhood, truthfully, and all of the surrounding neighborhoods as well. Just a real quick route. We've completed the line, and we'll name this line after we hear from you in terms of naming of this neighborhood. All right, take care. Bye-bye.